You're cruising down the interstate at 70 miles per hour when the rear passenger tire explodes without warning, rubber shredding at highway speed, the kind of violent failure that sends most SUVs into an uncontrollable slide, or worse, a full rollover that ends with twisted metal and shattered glass. But this vehicle doesn't even flinch. The instant that corner drops from the blown tire, the suspension system detects the failure in milliseconds and physically lifts that entire corner of the SUV back up to level, holding it there with hydraulic force while you maintain complete control on 3 functioning wheels, no fishtailing across lanes, no grinding rim against pavement throwing sparks. Just smooth, controlled driving that lets you pull over safely at your own pace, or keep moving to find a better spot away from traffic. And this isn't some concept car technology locked behind a prototype. It's on sale right now, in production form, for less money than a fully optioned Ford Explorer. Welcome back to Motors In, where we just found the suspension breakthrough that has Land Rover engineers staying late in meetings and Mercedes executives quietly panicking about their pricing strategy. BYD just made the flat tire obsolete as a crisis, and what they did to pull that off is going to reshape what buyers expect from every SUV built after this moment. Let's break down exactly how they did it and why the competition is genuinely worried. The vehicle carrying this technology isn't some experimental platform cobbled together for a tech demo. It's built by Fangcheng Bao, which translates roughly to Warrior of the Great Wall, BYD's off-road focused sub-brand that they launched specifically to go hunting in Land Rover and Mercedes territory. And yeah, they picked that name with zero subtlety, because when you're coming after the Defender and the G-Wagon, you don't whisper about it. They just dropped 2 new models that embody this aggressive strategy, the Bao 5 and the larger flagship Bao 8. Both now available in flash charge trim, which refers to their next-generation ultra-fast charging capability that we'll get to in a minute. These SUVs look exactly like what Western buyers already recognize as serious off-road hardware: aggressive fender flares, bold front tow hooks, commanding stance, rugged proportions that communicate capability before you even open the door. Nothing about the exterior styling screams revolutionary technology or radical departure from formula. And that's completely intentional. BYD isn't trying to reinvent what a capable off-roader should look like, because that visual language already works and buyers already trust it. What they're reinventing is what happens underneath that familiar sheet metal, and that's where things get genuinely wild in ways that make a $150,000 G-Wagon feel like it's using technology from a previous century. Before we dive into the suspension system that's the real headline, you need to understand the mechanical violence these vehicles are packing, because the suspension only tells half the story of what makes these SUVs so disruptive. The Bao 8 runs BYD's DMO Super Hybrid platform, which combines a 2.0-liter turbocharged gasoline engine with dual electric motors positioned one at each axle for proper all-wheel drive torque distribution. Combined output hits 748 horsepower and 760 newton-meters of torque. That converts to roughly 560 pound-feet for anyone doing the mental math in freedom units. And just to put that in perspective, that's more raw twisting force than a Hellcat-powered Jeep Grand Cherokee delivers. Except this is in a vehicle primarily engineered for rock crawling and fording rivers, not drag strip launches. This 2.5-ton off-road fortress hits 60 miles per hour in 4.8 seconds, which frankly shouldn't be physically possible given the weight distribution and the aggressive all-terrain tire compound they're running. But the power story doesn't stop at the engine and motors. BYD dropped their second-generation blade battery technology into this platform and paired it with their new 1,500 kilowatt flash charging network that they're building out specifically to support these hybrid performance vehicles. You can take the battery pack from 10% charge to 80% in somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes, depending on conditions. That's basically the time it takes to grab a coffee and make a bathroom stop at a highway rest area. And when you combine that electric range with the fuel capacity of the onboard gas tank, you're looking at over 1,200 kilometers of total range on the Bao 8. That converts to roughly 750 miles, and over 1,300 kilometers, or about 810 miles, on the smaller Bao 5. Range anxiety as a concept just died for a vehicle category where range used to be the single biggest hesitation preventing buyers from considering electrification at all. But the hybrid powertrain and the flash charging capability, as impressive as those specs are, that's just the appetizer. The main course, and the reason we're actually making this video, is what's happening independently at each of the 4 corners of this vehicle, completely separate from whatever the engine or battery is doing. This is the DiSus-P Ultra Suspension System, and if you've been paying attention to the air suspension systems that luxury SUVs from Range Rover and Cadillac have been putting in their flagship models over the last several years, forget everything you think you know about how adaptive suspension works, Traditional air suspension relies on compressed air moving through bags and valves to adjust ride height and damping. It's relatively slow to react because air has to physically move through lines and valves. It's fragile in extreme temperature conditions, and it's notorious for catastrophic failures in harsh cold when airlines freeze or compressors struggle to build pressure. This DiSus-P Ultra system is not that. It's not even in the same category of technology. This is a fully active hydraulic system running a dual valve configuration with a lifting capacity of 9 tons at each individual corner independently of what the other 3 wheels are doing. That's not a typo or a translation error. 9 metric tons of lifting force at each wheel. To put that in perspective, that's enough raw force to lift a fully loaded semi-truck trailer using just one corner of a consumer SUV. And here's what makes it genuinely wild. It doesn't react to bumps and road imperfections after your wheel has already hit them, the way a normal suspension system works, even a really good adaptive damper setup. Instead, it's constantly pre-scanning the road surface ahead in real time using forward-facing sensors and adjusting the hydraulic dampers before the wheel even arrives at that section of pavement. Think of it like a bodyguard who already knows exactly where the punch is coming from and has already moved his arm to block it before it lands, instead of taking the hit first and then reacting afterward. When you need to clear a massive boulder on a technical trail, the system raises overall ride height by 200 millimeters, which gives you a wading depth of 790 millimeters. That's over 2.5 feet of water clearance, meaning you can drive through flooded sections of road or across a shallow river without drowning the engine bay or frying the electrical systems. That's deep enough to handle a flooded underpass after a severe storm that would strand virtually anything else in this class. And when you need efficiency instead on a long highway cruise to save fuel and battery charge, the system drops the entire SUV down closer to the pavement to reduce aerodynamic drag. Then the moment you exit onto a dirt road or gravel trail, it raises itself back up automatically without you touching a button. And it does all of this across an operating temperature range from -40 degrees Celsius to +85 degrees Celsius. That's -40 Fahrenheit on the cold end, which is the point where Celsius and Fahrenheit actually meet, and 185 degrees Fahrenheit on the hot end. So whether you're in Death Valley in the middle of July or Fargo, North Dakota in the dead of January, this system genuinely does not care, and that's a real engineering achievement because hydraulic fluid viscosity and seal integrity are exactly the kinds of things that fall apart at those temperature extremes on lesser systems. But here's the number that matters most and the one you need to remember for the rest of this video. Each wheel can independently articulate meaning, move up and down on its own completely separate from the other 3 wheels by up to 300 millimeters. That's nearly a full foot of independent travel at every single corner of the vehicle on demand. And that number is exactly what makes the opening scenario possible, the blowout that stops being a life-threatening emergency. Let's go back to that highway scenario we opened with and actually break down the physics of what's happening under the skin when that tire lets go at 70 miles per hour, because understanding this is key to grasping why this represents such a massive leap. In a conventional vehicle, when a tire blows out at highway speed, that corner of the car instantly drops several inches as the tire deflates and the metal rim makes contact with the road surface. The rim starts grinding against pavement, throwing sparks. You lose grip on that corner almost immediately, and the vehicle pulls hard to one side because the rolling resistance on the blown corner is suddenly completely different from the other 3 tires that still have air. If you panic and yank the steering wheel to correct, which is exactly what human instinct tells you to do in that moment of sudden asymmetric drag, that's how blowouts turn into rollovers. It's one of the single most dangerous failure modes a vehicle can experience, and it's been essentially unsolved by the mainstream automotive industry since the invention of the pneumatic tire. Every safety system built around tire failure, from electronic stability control to run-flat tire technology, has been about managing the symptoms after the failure happens, not solving the actual root problem of the corner dropping. DiSus-P Ultra detects that drop instantly, and we're talking milliseconds here, faster than the blink of an eye, faster than your foot can physically move from the accelerator to the brake pedal. The system immediately redistributes load away from that failed corner and actively lifts it back up using that 300 millimeter range of independent articulation we just talked about. You're no longer riding on a blown-out tire with the rim scraping pavement. You're essentially riding on 3 good wheels and 1 hydraulically suspended corner, with the system holding that geometry steady and level. You can pull over safely at your own pace without fighting the wheel, or in some demonstrated cases, continue driving at reduced speed to reach a safer location before stopping. No scraping rim throwing sparks across the highway, no violent fishtailing, no losing control of the steering. It's the kind of capability that genuinely sounds like science fiction until you actually watch the demo footage of it happening in real time. And once you do pull over safely to deal with the flat, this is the part that made us pause the footage and rewind it the first time we saw it. You don't need a jack at all. No scissor jack rattling around loose in the trunk. No hydraulic bottle jack you have to dig out from under the cargo floor and figure out where to position under the frame. You just push a button on the center infotainment screen and the SUV physically lifts its own wheel into the air using that exact same hydraulic system that just saved you from a rollover 30 seconds earlier. It's a self-jacking vehicle. If you've ever tried changing a tire on the shoulder of a busy interstate with semi-trucks blasting past you at 80 miles per hour just a few feet away while you're praying that your flimsy factory jack doesn't slip out from under the car while your hand is near the wheel well, this system exists specifically so you never have to experience that nightmare scenario again. And honestly, that capability alone might be worth the price of admission for anyone who's ever changed a tire in a rainstorm on the side of Interstate 95 at night. Now having genius-level chassis hardware means absolutely nothing if the software brain running the show is dumb. A brilliant hydraulic system is only as effective as the sensors feeding it data and the processing power making decisions in real time. And this is where BYD made a genuinely smart strategic move. Instead of trying to build an autonomous driving stack completely from scratch, which is an enormously expensive and time-consuming undertaking even for companies with very deep pockets, BYD partnered with Huawei. Yes, the phone company, but also one of the most advanced technology firms on the planet when it comes to sensor fusion and real-time processing, to integrate their Chen-Kun ADS system. This isn't a basic lane-keeping assist feature bolted on as a marketing checkbox, the way a lot of driver assistance packages get sold as options on American SUVs. This SUV runs dual LiDAR sensors and infrared night vision as standard equipment. It doesn't just handle highway cruise control comfortably. It can navigate complicated urban streets, manage roundabouts that trip up plenty of human drivers, and parallel park itself while you stand outside on the sidewalk and watch the whole process happen through the window. Step inside the cabin, and it doesn't feel like a rugged trail truck at all, which is honestly a bit surprising given all the hardcore off-road hardware bolted underneath. Massive digital display screens span the dashboard. A premium sound system fills the interior with genuinely impressive audio clarity. The front passenger seat has a leg rest that reclines like a business-class airline seat, and there's even a camping mode where the seats fold completely flat, creating a sleeping surface for overnight trips, something American truck and SUV buyers have been begging manufacturers to offer for years, and something you usually only see as an expensive aftermarket conversion here in the States. Alright, let's pause for a second and actually count what we're looking at here. That's 5 major capabilities this SUV is delivering that nothing else on the market is doing at this price point. The hybrid powertrain, pushing supercar-level acceleration numbers. Flash charging that eliminates range anxiety as a practical concern. Hydraulic suspension that can climb over boulders and ford rivers. A blowout recovery system that solves a century-old safety problem. And Huawei-powered autonomous driving running the entire show. If any single one of those features appeared alone, it would be a headline feature on a $100,000 vehicle from a legacy luxury brand. And BYD just stacked all 5 into one SUV and priced it like a mainstream family hauler. If that's worth anything to you, hit the like button on this video right now because it genuinely helps this channel more than you might think. And it costs you literally nothing. And if you're new here, hit subscribe and tap the notification bell because we cover stories like this. The ones legacy automakers desperately hope you never hear about. Multiple times every single week. Drop a comment too and tell us honestly, would you actually daily drive something like this, or does it feel like too much technology to trust your life to? Now let's talk price, because this is where the situation gets genuinely uncomfortable for everyone else in the industry. And when we say uncomfortable, we mean executives in boardrooms are having very serious conversations about their entire product strategy right now. Here's the number that should genuinely worry Toyota, Land Rover, and Mercedes-Benz leadership. The BAO 8 Flash Charge Edition starts at roughly $61,000 in China. The smaller, more athletic BAO 5 starts around $44,000. Let those two numbers sit with you for just a second, because we're about to compare them directly to what you'd actually pay for something even remotely similar here in the United States. For $61,000, you're getting 748 horsepower. Triple locking differentials for serious off-road articulation, Huawei-level autonomous driving capability, 15-minute flash charging, and a suspension system that can save you from a highway speed blowout and then jack itself up so you never have to touch a lug wrench in the rain on the side of the road again. All of that for less than what a base Range Rover Sport costs before you've added a single option. and Range Rover Sport buyers know exactly how fast those option boxes add up on the configurator. A Land Rover Defender with anywhere close to this level of off-road hardware runs well past $80,000 once you're into the trims that have actual off-road equipment instead of just the aesthetic, and it doesn't have a self-jacking suspension or a flash-charging hybrid powertrain. The standard Defender is still burning pure gasoline with no electrification at all in most of its trim levels. A Mercedes G-Wagon, even with the new electric EQG variant, starts north of $140,000, and it's still playing catch-up on charging speed and autonomous driving compared to what BYD just shipped in volume production. BYD is offering more actual engineering at a fraction of the price, and unlike a lot of EV startups that are burning venture capital cash to chase growth, they're doing it while turning a profit. This is the part of the BYD story that goes way beyond one impressive suspension system on one SUV. It's a pattern that keeps repeating itself across their entire vehicle lineup every time BYD releases something new, whether it's a $10,000 city car like the Seagull or a $61,000 off-roader like the Bao 8. The specifications come in higher and the price comes in lower than what Western automakers thought was even possible at that price point. And that's not an accident. It's not subsidized fantasy pricing that's unsustainable. BYD manufactures their own batteries in-house, their own electric motors, their own semiconductor chips, even their own suspension hardware. Almost the entire supply chain is vertically integrated under one corporate umbrella. When the rest of the global auto industry was stuck waiting 6 months for semiconductor shipments during the supply chain crisis a few years back, BYD just called their own semiconductor subsidiary and kept building vehicles without interruption. That kind of vertical control built up methodically over roughly 2 decades is exactly how you end up with a $61,000 SUV that embarrasses 6-figure competitors on paper. So let's circle back to that highway blowout scenario we opened this entire video with, for basically the entire history of the automobile going back over a century. A blown tire at highway speed has been a coin flip between scary but manageable if you're skilled and lucky, and absolutely catastrophic if you're not. Every automaker on Earth has treated that scenario as an essentially unsolvable problem. You engineer better tires with reinforced sidewalls. You develop better electronic stability control software to fight the symptoms after the failure happens. But nobody ever actually fixed the core issue of the wheel physically dropping out from under the vehicle the instant the tire loses pressure. BYD just fixed it. Not with a warning light on the dashboard, not with a seatbelt pretensioner that fires after the crisis has already started, but with hydraulic actuators that physically hold the corner of the car up in real time faster than any human could possibly react. And then they took that exact same hydraulic hardware and turned it into a feature that eliminates one of the most miserable and genuinely dangerous experiences a driver can have, changing a tire on the shoulder of a busy highway with traffic screaming past. This is the real story underneath the surface story. It's not just that BYD built one cool SUV with an impressive suspension feature for a demo video. It's that a company most Americans still vaguely associate with cheap batteries and budget sedans just casually solved an engineering problem the entire global automotive industry has treated as physically unsolvable for over 100 years, and then priced the solution like a mainstream family SUV instead of gatekeeping it behind a 6-figure luxury badge reserved for the wealthy. That's the moment you know the competitive ground is genuinely shifting under the entire industry, when the affordable brand starts out-engineering the luxury heritage brands at less than half the price. The old pecking order doesn't hold together for very much longer. So here's the actual question this video leaves us with, and the one we want you thinking about after you click away. Is this the kind of innovation that finally pushes Land Rover and Mercedes and Toyota to actually step up their engineering game and respond with real technology instead of just refreshed marketing campaigns? Or does BYD just keep running further and further ahead while American buyers sit on the sidelines watching from a distance because of import tariffs and trade policy that keeps this exact SUV off our roads? Drop your honest take in the comments below. Would you actually trust a self-jacking hydraulic suspension system on your daily driver? Or does that feel like one more complicated system that's eventually going to break and cost you thousands to repair? We read every single comment on this channel, and honestly some of the best video ideas we've ever produced came directly from you guys debating it out in the comment section. If this is your first Motors In video, welcome to the garage. We cover automotive culture and engineering stories from every corner of the world. The wild, innovative stuff coming out of China, the classics that built American car culture from the ground up, and everything in between. We don't play favorites between brands or countries, and we're not here to tell you what to buy. We just follow the story wherever it leads. And right now, the story is leading straight to Shenzhen, If you found this one interesting, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next, because BYD isn't slowing down anytime soon, and neither are we. See you in the next one.